Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Sherrone Moore, the Michigan Football Program, land another one. This one coming from linebackers coach Brian Jean-Marie, expected to join this Michigan staff, come and coach the linebackers heading into the 2024 year. And we covered Brian Jean-Marie a little bit earlier on this week, but now that it's official, or at least sounds to be official, time to dive in a little deeper on Brian Jean-Marie, talk about what he brings to this Michigan program. Two things right off the bat. One, Tennessee fought hard to keep Brian Jean-Marie at Knoxville and staying with this Tennessee Vols program. And I think it shows two things. One, Sherrone Moore getting really aggressive, building out a strong staff. But more importantly, it shows that, Brian Jean-Marie was a very coveted coach for this Tennessee Volunteers program. And the fact that they battled Michigan to keep him in Knoxville, I think tells you a little bit about how they saw Brian Jean-Marie as a coach within that Tennessee defense. In my mind, another phenomenal hire. And I'm not going to lie, Sherrone Moore fired me up in terms of the moves that he's making, building this defensive coaching staff the last couple of days. We talked about Stephen Adegoke yesterday afternoon as that news broke. Time to dive into Brian Jean-Marie. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. And as a Michigan fan, it's been a wild last couple of weeks covering this coaching search, and the amount of support, the amount of feedback you guys have given the boys, that stuff means the world. We'll continue to cover how this coaching staff shakes out. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear how you guys are feeling about this one in the comment section. And without further ado, let's get into it. And I want to start with the first trend that we are seeing very clearly for Sherrone Moore and this Michigan program, and that is prior relationships are huge, right? Brian Jean-Marie and Sherrone Moore worked together both at Louisville early on in the 2010s, but also at Michigan in 2020, and was thought of as a very, very good coach for Michigan before making that move to Tennessee. You're seeing Sherrone Moore fill out his coaching staff with guys that he knows and knows what they are bringing to the program. And that's just got to make you feel good if you're a Michigan fan about evaluating some of these hires. Next thing that jumps out that I think is absolutely massive, especially with a guy like Stephen Adegoke coming into Michigan earlier yesterday afternoon, is Stephen Adegoke is a young riser in the coaching industry. Brian Jean-Marie is a seasoned vet. And you talk about the balance of this coaching staff. You have a lot of young up-and-coming coaches, but a guy like Brian Jean-Marie comes in with 20-plus years of coaching experience, especially at that linebacker position. That's going to be massive. You look at the track record, Texas linebackers coach, USF defensive coordinator, spent some time in Michigan, spent the last 3 years with that Tennessee Volunteers defense. And you look at some of the programs that he's worked for. He's been around this sport for the last 20 years. And you talk about Sherrone Moore being a new head coach. Surrounding yourself with the staff that has a lot of experience and been around the block or time or two, I think is absolutely massive for Sherrone Moore and this Michigan coaching staff. The next thing you talk about is a really well-respected coach. There's a reason Sherrone Moore goes out and gets Brian Jean-Marie after having prior experience with them both at Louisville and Michigan. And again, hammering home the idea that Tennessee did not want to lose Brian Jean-Marie. You often see programs, oh, you want one of our coaches? You can have him if they don't necessarily like him. You saw Tennessee counter with an offer with Brian Jean-Marie to raise his pay. Michigan comes back, stays aggressive, wants him, and makes it happen. So I think two things. One, Sherrone Moore dedicated to filling out an extremely strong coaching staff. But more importantly, I think Tennessee showed that this is a very good coach that was coveted within this Tennessee program. Next thing you talk about is the coaching chops. Now, I did a little deep dive late last night as it sounded like this was trending in that direction, looking at this Tennessee defense, specifically looking at that linebacker room, looking at some players that Brian Jean-Marie has worked with, including Jeremy Banks, Aaron Beasley, Elijah Herring. You take a look at this Tennessee defense in 2023, and a lot of the conversation goes to Josh Heupel and the high-flying offense. Take a look at this Tennessee defense and the strides it has made since Brian Jean-Marie has been there. And I'm not saying it was solely Brian Jean-Marie, but you look at the linebacker play, it certainly was good. You look at this defense as a whole, Brian Jean-Marie played a part in a massive overhaul of this Tennessee defense. This Tennessee defense last year allowed only 20.9 points per game. That was top 25 in the country. And I'm specifically going to look at that rushing defense. 3.3 yards per carry to opposing running backs. That was 13th best in the country. Again, a lot of the conversation goes to that Tennessee offense. That Tennessee defense in 2023 with linebackers coach Brian Jean-Marie there was very, very good. And again, developing some very good linebackers who went to the NFL, Jeremy Banks, Aaron Beasley, and Elijah Herring, an up-and-coming stud for the Tennessee Volunteers. In the last conversation that you got to have when you're evaluating this coaching staff, and it goes back to recruiting. And we've had a lot of conversations about Sherrone Moore making a strong emphasis with his hires on, can these guys get it done on the recruiting trail? Brian Jean-Marie certainly can. You start scrolling down the list of the guys that have committed to Brian Jean-Marie during his time as a coach, dominated the state of Texas. You see, we're going to zoom in a little bit here, a lot of blue chip prospects that Brian Jean-Marie was either the primary or secondary recruiter on. And he's done it at a lot of different schools, right? You see the state of Texas, landing some of the best players in the state of Texas during his time with the Texas Longhorns. You go to his time at Michigan, was responsible for the commitments of guys like Junior Colson, Jaden Hood, Jaden McBurrows. This is a guy that I think two things. One, is obviously a good recruiter. You see the proofs in the pudding, been a good recruiter for the last 20 years. But more importantly, the relationships that he has all over the country. And we have a lot of time spending time talking about Michigan, recruiting the state of Ohio. This is a guy that can get it done recruiting all over the country, right? Spent significant time in the state of Texas, has relationships with high schools and coaches in that region. You got to think that that helps Michigan's opportunities and chances at landing players from the state of Texas. Obviously, a very talent-rich state, but he's also a hometown Florida guy, spent time at USF. And so you look at Michigan getting it done the last couple of years in the state of Florida, another very talented state for high school talent. You feel like Brian Jean-Marie could maybe help Michigan recruit the state of Florida as well. And at the end of the day, two things that stand out. One, he's landed a bunch of commitments, right? The proof's in the pudding. He is a very good recruiter, but more importantly, he has a experience. And this is a guy that has a lot of relationships with high school coaches and high school programs, been around the block at multiple different areas of the United States. Brian Jean-Marie, I think, is a massive hire. You take a look at the boxes that you wanted to see checked. One, the continuity, the former relationships, obviously spending time with Michigan. That's obviously massive. The relationship with Chiron Moore. More importantly, can he get it done on the recruiting trail? You guys see right here, he's been responsible for landing a lot of top talent at various different spots during his coaching career. And then you look at the coaching chops. This is a guy that has done a very good job with that Tennessee defense the last couple of years. He seems to be a very good coach with a lot of experience. He's a good coach in development. He can get it done on the recruiting trail. I don't know if there's any more boxes to check. And again, you look at this Michigan coaching staff. Now we got our defensive backs coach. We got our linebackers coach. Greg Scruggs, Wisconsin defensive line coach. Again, you are on the clock now. We'll continue to keep you guys updated as these coaching hires continue to roll in. Cannot thank the Michigan fans enough for all the support. It's been a blast for me. All the support, the nice comments that you guys have thrown in there. Can't thank y'all enough. If you guys do enjoy the content and enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.